Hey guys, what's going on? It's Evan Buck here, and today I wanted to offer some of my thoughts and perspectives on the potential Stoa Lincoln Douglas debate resolutions, the three topics that Stoa has presented for the vote for the 2018-2019 competitive season. I wanted to offer some of my thoughts on what I think is the best resolution choice, some of the pros and cons for for any of the resolutions rather, and I want to start off by saying that this year I'm actually really pleased with the quality of the resolutions and how relevant all three of them are. This year I can safely say I would not be disappointed if any of them won. Frankly, that's not something I can say for every year. There have been some years in the past where there's been one definite resolution I do not want. But this year, all of them are good. So whichever one of these do end up being the debate discussion, I do want to give the disclaimer that, there's one I'm going to rag on a little bit in particular here, but just know, I still think it's a good topic. I think it's a good resolution. But I definitely think one does rise to the top in terms of the three choices that we've been given. So with that in mind, let's take a look at the topics that we have been given. The first one for LD is resolved. Criminal procedure should value truth-seeking over individual privacy. Now, there's a couple of pros to this one that jump out to me right away. First of all, it's obviously very relevant, and that's kind of non-unique. That applies to all the resolutions that I'm going to be talking about. All three of them are pretty relevant. But this is also, I like the way it's phrased. It has a very good clash, very definite, obvious, apparent value clash. And I think this is going to require the debaters to actually produce some value arguments as opposed to just application war, which quite frankly has basically been what the state of Stoa Lincoln Douglas debate has reduced down to over the past few competitive seasons. Heck, even when I graduated the league, it was becoming a rather pervasive problem, and it was a problem even back when I was competing. So I hope this resolution would lead to some stronger value arguments. There's going to be a lot of application wars as always, but I think this is a really well-framed discussion, and it gives grounds for both sides, and it gives a setting, which is, criminal procedures. So we're looking at this topic in the setting of criminal procedure, which I think is a very broad but also very reasonable setting for the topic. With that in mind, I think the main problem with this resolution is that this topic of privacy versus security has been beaten to death over the past few years. In various forms, in the Stoa Speech and Debate League, in LD in particular, these kind of debates, and also in TP as well, liberty versus security debates, privacy and security debates, have been at the forefront of a lot of discussion. And that's not a bad thing, but when it's been kind of like the mantra of a lot of what's been going on for many, many years, the arguments get old, they get exhausted. And I think for newer debaters, for older debaters, they're going to be familiar with a lot of the arguments already. And so they're going to have an edge. And the younger debaters, debaters who are just coming in, it's a very approachable topic for them. It's a very good topic for new debaters. So that's why I think it's equitable. But it's going to give the newer debater, or the older debaters, just that much more of a competitive advantage already above what they already have. In that, if you've been in the league for 3 or 4 years, you are already well-versed in a ton of arguments that this resolution is about. So in terms of offering us fresh material and fresh, new, scintillating, sizzling topics of discussion, if you want that, don't vote for Resolution 1. If you want the status quo, or if you want just a rehash of a lot of arguments we've already seen in the past, then go ahead and vote for Resolution 1. Let's talk about Resolution 2. Resolved. The United States overvalues the right of the people to keep and bear arms. This resolution is, again, like I've said for the first one, it's very pertinent. And this is probably the most pertinent of the three. It's very, very in tune with recent world events and domestic events here in the United States. And it also has a good setting as well, limiting it to the United States. Now, I think that this is helpful for gun control discussions and issues because obviously we live in the United States. It's the most relevant to what we're going to be debating, and it's also directly relating to the Constitution, the Second Amendment, quoting the Second Amendment. So, again, it's a good frame. I think it's a good way to frame the discussion. I think that if it was framed along the lines of, another security versus privacy debate, like as the first one was, we'd have basically two of the same resolution, just in different tangents. One of them would be a broad, general liberty versus security, and then the second resolution, if it was like, the right to bear arms should be valued over the community or whatever, like that would be just a rehash of privacy and security, or the individual rights versus collective interests and collective rights. Again, collective interests and individual rights are a good topic, but it's something that is really been a huge deal in LD for many years, and I'd rather look at another kind of discussion. And the third resolution, I think, provides that, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The thing I don't like about the second resolution is that it is extraordinarily biased. Extremely biased. I don't have to get too much into this, but I think it's rather self-evident that the Stoa Speech and Debate League is predominantly conservative and loves the Constitution, loves gun rights, doesn't like gun control. So the neg side has a huge leg up. They're probably going to be winning 60% of the rounds just from the start. 60 to maybe even 70%. That's not really how it should be. It should be ideally equal, 50-50. But at the start of a season, AF typically wins a little bit more of the time. And the reason why is because negs obviously don't really know what AF is going to run. They might be unprepared or not know how to counter AF as strongly as they do as they research and keep going in the season. So the second resolution, although it's a very pertinent topic, and my other problem with it that I just remembered, the other problem I have with it is that although it's probably one of the better fact-value resolution hybrids, I'm not really a fan of fact-value resolution hybrids to begin with. So privacy is undervalued. If anybody debated in that year, you know just what I talk about. It kind of forces the value framework. It kind of pigeonholes the value debates into a sort of a weird place. And honestly, I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't see value debate being a very strong point in this resolution. So, because everybody's probably just going to run justice or human rights and agree to it. So those are kind of the problems I have with this resolution. I like it. It's pertinent. It's good. But I definitely think it's the weakest out of the three. And so the last resolution, resolution number 3, is my personal favorite, and I would personally vote for this one. Advances in biomedical engineering that save human lives ought to be valued above deontological ethics. I really like this resolution because, beating the dead horse, it's very pertinent, but it's rather under the radar. It's dealing with a topic that is new, it's cutting edge, it's fresh, it's exciting. It's not something that LD debaters have really researched much, gone too far in depth before. I think it's going to be able to open new grounds and provide us with a new areas of discussion. I think that's a really strong point of this resolution. It also mentions one of my favorite little things to bring up or discuss in LD, and that's deontological ethics. A lot of people run utilitarian ethics, whether or not they admit it in LD. LD is, a lot of the time, is basically based on utilitarianism. But this is actually making people research and defend a deontological viewpoint. So I think that's really interesting, and I like how the resolution does that. Now, the weakness of this is that I think this is going to get into extremely touchy areas. Stem cell research pops to mind immediately, and this is one issue, and cloning is another one, human cloning. Those are two issues where people are very opinionated, and things might get heated, things might get testy, especially with personal opinions flare and tempers possibly flaring, and community judges, or even just any judge, having very strong personal beliefs on the topic. So that's somewhat of a weakness of it, kind of the same as the second one, but I think this resolution, the check that this resolution provides, is that it has the two areas of debate, the two opposing sides, very clearly delineated. And there are extremely powerful, strong arguments for both sides. You know, human life, biomedical engineering, supporting human lives, saving it, versus deontological ethics, thought-based ethics. Basically, kind of a really specific form of pragmatism versus idealism, right? Should we save human lives, or should we do what is morally right all the time? And that might forestall the progress of biomedical engineering, but we uphold our morality. So that's I think it's a really strong debate, it's a really interesting debate, and I believe it's the best resolution choice out of these three. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Sound off about which resolution you are probably going to vote for and why. Like I said at the beginning, I think all three of these resolutions are really strong, and I am really happy to be a LD coach going into next season. I think that next season is going to be very exciting. It's going to have a lot of great opportunities for strong arguments and strong debaters to rise to the top. And so I pray that God blesses you as you search out the meaning and the depth and the truths behind these issues, and I'll see you next time.